Well, welcome one and all to our first Wednesday of July 2025, second half of the year here in our Wednesday evening class, looking at our normal sessions of going through the book of Revelation, which tonight we will be pausing once again as we will be picking up our look at Bible patterns in modern times. And so we will pick up where we left off on that with the latest events in Israel and Iran and America and all that. But before we do that, let's look to Revelation. Fast forwarding ahead of where we are in class, we're in chapter 9, but let's skip ahead to chapter 12 for tonight's purposes. Because as we look at current events and headlines, it's very important to keep in mind that there's a spiritual picture underlying it all. And these are the things the Lord has given us in His Word for us to have as a lens as we look to these things happening, see how they may or may not be falling into these scriptures that we are eventually certainly aiming towards. So with that, Revelation 12, we can read the chapter at 17 verses. Revelation 12, verse 1. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with a sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was pregnant, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 crowns. And his tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven, and hurled them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. And she gave birth to a son, a male, who is going to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, so that there she would be nourished for 1260 days. Revelation 12, verse 7. And there was war in heaven, Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon. The dragon and his angels waged war, and they did not prevail. And there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters has been thrown down, the one who accuses them before our God day and night. And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony. And they did not love their life even when faced with death. For this reason, rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you with great wrath, knowing that he has only a short time. Verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the 2 wings of the great eagle were given to the woman, so that she could fly into the wilderness to her place, where she was nourished for a time, times, and a half time, away from the presence of the serpent. And the serpent hurled water like a river out of his mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon had hurled out of his mouth. So the dragon was enraged with the woman, and went off to make war with the rest of her children, who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. So without going into a lot of detail, we'll certainly do that as we get to chapter 12, while we're currently in chapter 9 in our regular sessions. Just wanted to start tonight with that before looking at current events, just to give us the backdrop of the spiritual warfare that is certainly in place and has been in place for thousands of years, but is certainly ongoing. And while the humans and the nations come and go over time, the warfare remains the same. The children of the devil and the children of light. They change out, but Satan on his side and the one true Lord God Almighty and Jesus Christ on the other side. And of course, as we know full well, they are not opposite equals. Satan is no match for the Lord. He's just given a very short, as it says in verse 12, he knows he only has a short time. So he's making the most of the time he has, knowing it's got an expiration date. And so this is when we are looking at things happening, it's important to take a step back, kind of zoom out and say, see, how does this kind of fit with what we know Scripture tells us is the direction things will be going? Who are the players in this, and who's going in a godly direction, who's going in a godless direction? Of course, referring to the one true God Almighty. Lots of folks are claiming a God or many gods, but they're not real and true gods. And so, with that backdrop, any quick reactions to Revelation 12 before we get back to our current events? Make sense? Kind of see that backdrop as what's happening behind the scenes? Yeah. Yes.
The child was going to be Jesus, but
The child is Jesus. You're right.
yeah, minute.
Yep, the child is Jesus. And the woman who gave birth, well, of course, literally Mary gave birth. It's the nation of Israel that gave birth to the Messiah. Yeah. So good to point out. So, and that's very good to point out. So 17, Satan is going to be persecuting both the nation of Israel and Christians, the Lord's church. And so it's been said that as the times draw near, so too Israel and the church would be naturally drawing near, as we're both on the receiving end of this, and we can be a common support to each other. And very important that we don't forget Romans 11, how even though they haven't fully recognized Jesus Christ, those who survive the unfortunate things that are going to be happening yet to come, those who survive that, there is an opportunity for them to come around, recognize Christ, and be grafted back in to the olive tree that they had with Abraham. So with that, let's get the screen share going and pick up where we had left off and bring us a little further into the present. So I wanted to refresh this because it shows us that there are kind of two things happening. While a lot of the attention, understandably so, has been on Iran, there's still stuff happening in Afghanistan with Al-Qaeda. And keep in mind, though the names and the players may change, the mission is the same: anti-Israel, anti-America, anti-Judeo-Christian God. So all being led by Satan, even if some people are, if I can use the phrase, useful idiots or dupes of him. So from a CIA targeter, a former CIA targeter, Sarah Adams, keeping her contacts going, she shared this back on June 15th. Breaking: Israel may have just eliminated Mohammad Kazemi, the top Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps operative supporting Al-Qaeda's upcoming U.S. homeland plot, aka also known as 9/11 2.0. In the past, Kazemi was personally tasked by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' QF Qasem Soleimani, who's been assassinated, with protecting and hiding both Hamza bin Laden, son of Osama bin Laden, and Saif al-Adel inside Iran in the years leading up to the fall of Afghanistan, which happened in 2021. So this guy was hiding Osama bin Laden's son Hamza and this other guy in Iran until Afghanistan fell. America pulled out and the Taliban took over. Hamza, son of bin Laden, Hamza and Saif are now the masterminds behind the upcoming U.S. plot. Kazemi, with the help of Hamza and Saif, was also one of the masterminds of the October 7th attacks. Remember that in 2023 on Israel. This guy and those two, Osama bin Laden's son Hamza and this other guy, Saif, those three, part of the masterminds of the October 7th attacks, which was planned as a dress rehearsal for 9/11 2.0. So what's coming is not going to resemble 9/11. It's going to resemble what happened in Israel. It's going to happen in America, but in multiple cities at once, and also in Europe. Kazemi also is or was in charge of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps plot to assassinate the President of the United States, Trump. That was to coincide with 9/11 2.0. At the same time those attacks were happening, there's going to be a hit on President Trump. Israel likely just eliminated one of the top threats in the world to our president. So bravo. So significant. While we're focusing on Iran, there's still a connection to Iraq. There's still a connection to Al-Qaeda. So I'm sorry, Iraq, Afghanistan, excuse me, and Al-Qaeda. And I find it interesting that both the bin Laden family and the current guy in Syria, al-Shara, also known as al-Jilani, his war name, they all come out of Saudi. They're all born in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is where the Muslim religion exploded out of. Saudi Arabia is where the Amalekites attacked Israel in Rephidim as they were coming out of Egypt. And so kind of interesting that this anti-Israel sentiment comes out of that area. So I shared this last time, but I wanted to refresh it and pick up from here. Any reactions to that?
What was 2.0 mean again?
2.0 means,
Better.
yeah, the next version, the redoing, the re-happening of it. Yeah, the next incarnation of it. So good question. So, I have on my little pocket here, I jotted down which ones I wanted to get to this evening, because as fascinating as stuff is, there's only so much time in a day. So that was June 15th. That was put out. On June 16th, I want to share this. That you'd find this interesting. Not the Bee posted this. So what this video here is, this is showing inside a safe room in Israel. And pause it right there, make it big. So this is a safe house, safe room in Israel, and then they're going to open the door. So all's good, safe and sound in here. Now open the door. I thought there was pretty stark contrast there. And now let me go to, I should have opened this earlier. In fact, let me do this.
What a seller does.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to stop that share for a moment. My apologies. There's a document I should have opened and I didn't. Okay, let's do that. Do that. Let me open that. There you go. And as that's opening, okay, let me minimize that. Come back to here. Share this. I know all this tech. Share that. So also on June 16th, here's an article, again, from Sarah Adams. I'm just going to read the highlights, talking about what's happened, how our enemies, and again, remember the spiritual warfare behind this, how they've been learning our moves and using them against us. So here's this, talking about this guy, Zawahiri. Zawahiri exploited every crack in the system. Our over-reliance on unreliable human intelligence, premature threat downgrades, we took the warnings down too early, false death confirmations, we're told people are dead when they're really not, and a blind spot when it came to Taliban duplicity. No, they're not playing us. Yeah, they are. A couple examples. In January of 2006, something happened where this was the pattern that he played out. Zawahiri, he used a false report to draw fire, saying, hey, that this is where he was, and he wasn't there. Let civilian casualties do the propaganda work. So he has a report, hey, I'm over here. So we fire over there. He's not there, but civilians are. We end up hitting civilians, makes us look bad. Then he shows up afterwards, kind of na-na-na-na-na-na, use his reappearance to cast the U.S. as both inept and immoral. We're not that good at what we do. We couldn't get them, and how horrible we are hitting these civilians. Our enemies learned that all they needed was a credible sounding lead to waste our ordnance, our weapons, and degrade our image, make us look bad. So we got suckered and played into that in January 2006. Here's another thing that happened. A Jordanian doctor, Humam al-Balawi, he claimed to have direct access to Zawahiri. He requested an in-person meeting at a CIA base. So, eager for a breakthrough, the CIA allowed him into the base, where he detonated a suicide bomb, killing 7 CIA officers and a Jordanian intelligence officer. Yeah. So, what they knew about us, our pursuit of high-value targets had become predictable. Zawahiri knew it, and he exploited it masterfully. So, we got suckered into it again. So now in Syria, which is in the Bible as where the king of the north is, and so Syria is very biblical in this, in these end times we're aiming towards. The guy in Syria, his war name was al-Jilani. Right now he's known as al-Shara. He's saying, "Oh, yeah, I used to be Al Qaeda, but I don't play that anymore. I'm turning a new leaf. I'm going legit and all that stuff." So, and then going back to this guy Zawahiri, he was giving his Syrian branch political cover while maintaining its core allegiance to Al Qaeda. They haven't stopped being connected to Al Qaeda. Analysts who downgraded the Al Qaeda threat in Syria after the split inadvertently enabled it by saying, okay, they're good, we'll take them at their word. Now we're just empowering them to do their dirty deeds under the scenes. So this guy Zawahiri understood Western targeting was name-based. Hey, we're going after these guys. All you had to do was change the label. Okay, I'm not under that name anymore. Okay, well, then you're off our radar because we're just looking at that name. So we need to be a little better than that. So talking about the fake deaths, strategic concealment of the next generation of Al-Qaeda leaders by manipulating Western reporting on their deaths. In 2009, it was widely reported that Said bin Laden had been killed in a drone strike, but that was false. Zawahiri deliberately allowed the misinformation to spread so he can get away with doing stuff because they think he's dead when he's not. 2 years later, 2019, reports claimed that Hamza bin Laden, Osama's designated heir, had been killed in a strike. Again, it wasn't true. Zawahiri had intentionally seeded the story, concerned that Hamza, by then a rising ideological operational figure, would become a primary drone target. So go ahead and tell him that he's dead, and then he can operate freely because they assume that he's dead. And again, Osama bin Laden's son, who's now pretty much the true head of Al-Qaeda. They've been claiming this guy in another land, but that's not really him. It's really Hamza behind the scenes. So this guy, Zawahiri, the U.S. did finally kill him in a drone strike July 31st, 2022. The Taliban never severed its ties with Al-Qaeda. In fact, Hamza bin Laden is married into Taliban royalty. The Doha Agreement, this agreement America entered into with the Taliban, was a farce. And Zawahiri was living openly in Kabul, in Afghanistan. He was the proof. So we make this agreement with the Taliban in Afghanistan saying, oh, we'll be buddies and we're going to be on the same page. Yet at the same time we're doing that, they've got this guy Zawahiri right there in Kabul, Afghanistan. They're harboring him. That the U.S. intelligence accepted the Taliban as a viable counterterrorism partner. So, hey, you're going to be our partners going against the bad guys. Taliban's our buddy now. They did this while Al-Qaeda's leader stood on a Kabul balcony there in Afghanistan. Was the final vindication of his decades-long disinformation campaign. So his big victory was getting America to partner with the Taliban in Afghanistan while he, the big bad guy, is right there in Afghanistan being covered by the Taliban. Zawahiri engineered the battlefield through lies. The most dangerous truth is this: his methods didn't die with him. They become the blueprint for those who watched exactly how easily the U.S. swallowed the bait, hook, line, and sinker. So we need to be more aware, but again, zoom out to the spiritual. They're trying to degrade, they're trying to make us look bad and take advantage of us and take us out while they can. So that kind of stuff is happening. And that's how the dirty our enemy plays. And this again, warfare against little Satan and great Satan is what they call us, ironically, in their anti-Israel, anti-Americanness. So any reactions on that guy and how our enemies are operating and kind of getting the better of us on occasion here?
Well, I think it's not too hard to do the way everything's going.
Not too hard to do the way everything's going, unfortunately, yes. So let's fast forward 2 days to June 18th. We'll skip that, the 17th for time's sake. We have the coordinates of the bunker housing the Ayatollah, and it's right there. We know where he is, or at least where he was as of last reporting. Right there in this underground bunker at the base of the Lavizan forest, the base of that mountain there, underground bunker. So you can run, but you can't hide. So that was on the 18th. Let's go to the 19th. Let's see, we'll skip the YouTube, but I do want to show something from this article from Town Hall. This is how Israel eliminated Iran's top generals in one master stroke. So let's see here. So here's what happened. A statement by Israeli sources. What Israel did was create a fake phone call for 20 members of the Iranian Air Force senior staff, calling them to all meet in a specific bunker in Tehran, the capital. So what they did is these guys, 20 members of top brass of the Air Force of Iran, they got this fake call to come meet in this bunker, all together in this one place. So Israel got them all together with this fake call and then bombed the place and killed them all. So when they did that, there was no one left alive to give the orders to send the attacks on Israel when they were coming in. So they actually fell for that fake call. Yeah. Israel faked a secret call from the top to nearly all the Iranian Air Force generals, instructing them to gather at a bunker. And once they were there, they bombed the bunker, eliminating the entire offensive missile authorizers. There's no one there to tell the soldiers to launch the missiles because they were all wiped out. So that was kind of brilliant on Israel's part there, but shows how deep their intelligence agents are to be able to make a call seem like it was coming from the top, telling these generals to go meet in this building, in this bunker here.
They tell everybody all your secrets, so it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So, you can't do it again.
Well, it's like the pager thing. Yeah, they're not going to be able to redo that, but obviously that was a huge triumph for Mossad and for Israel intelligence being able to do that. The flip phones and then the pagers. I mean, brilliant, but what it took to accomplish that. So yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things where you build a bigger mousetrap, there's going to be a bigger mouse. And so yeah, it's an ongoing thing, but Sister Ashley has made the observation before when it comes to Israel and its enemies, Israel seems to always pretty much have the upper hand. And when you look at casualties on one side versus the other, okay, hundreds of casualties on the Arab side, anti-Israel, and maybe a handful of casualties on the Israel side. And it just seems to be that Israel, because they've had to be forced to be in survival mode, and this is literally life or death for them, they become very good at surviving. And so that was from the 19th. Then I want to show something from the 22nd, and then we'll close on the 30th. So I'll skip the 20th, 21st. Here is our friend Israel My Channel from something he posted on June 22nd. So we'll share this.
Guys, I was telling you yesterday that something big is going to happen, and it did. The US struck 3 nuclear research centers in Iran, including the one that was fortified the most, Fordo, inside a mountain. This strike could only be done by the United States because the United States have the B-2 bombers and the legendary bunker busters. And here is some of the footage showing you this gigantic attack. The US used in this attack its biggest bunker buster bomb, the Massive Ordnance Penetrator, MOP, which weighs 30,000 pounds and is 6.2 meters long and carries about 5,300 pounds of explosives. This bomb is so big that it can only be carried by the B-2 planes. And US just used that monster against Iran. Wow. Here is a nice video showing you the Israeli planes escorting a B-2 bomber. Just an amazing video showing you the masterpiece of this machine. It is so complicated, this bomber, that a human is incapable of flying it. You need to have a computer flying this plane to keep the balance. It is so advanced. Only the US has such a technology. It is like an alien technology that everybody else envies. And that was the tool that Israel was lacking. Israel could not blow up the Fordo bunker facility. but the US could, and the US decided to do it. They decided to do it for the good of humanity. And for days now, I was informing you of this accumulation of the US force around Iran. Aircraft carriers, B-2 bombers, evacuation of the staff, the plane tankers that went to the Middle East on a massive scale. Those were all signs that we are about to see something epic. And we almost saw it because nobody actually expected it to happen when it happened. That was a brilliant operation because nobody knew when it's going to happen. So kudos to the military of the US for planning this excellent, excellent operation. Now, Iran was humiliated. I mean, this is on a global stage the worst thing that could have happened to the regime. Their precious toy has just been destroyed. And now, well, they need to make a choice. Either they say, okay, that's it, that's too much, we can't do it, we give up, or they decide to fight. But if they decide to fight, well, it's gonna get only worse for them.
You won't believe how easy solar energy with home backup battery can be. A lot of homeowners think going solar means a huge upfront investment.
And there are reports that the Ayatollah right now is deep somewhere sitting in a bunker, but that's not gonna help you if the US is involved. Because the United States can penetrate the deepest bunker. So there is nowhere to hide. And he needs to make a decision. It's probably the end of this regime, but we'll see. Right now, the US and Israel are showing strength. They're showing that there are finally times when somebody said enough is enough. You are going to pay for the evil that you have done. Certainly, President Trump and his administration is a different quality that we didn't have in the past. They are willing to do what is right. And finally, there are people that are around President Trump that are also doing the right thing. Everybody in the world for years were saying, no, 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 we can't do it. It's impossible and it's possible. Well, it is possible and it just happened. Somebody was strong enough to show that you can't terrorize the world forever. You can't terrorize and say death to Israel, death to America, and think that there will be no consequences. And Iran was accumulating a massive amount of enriched uranium. There is no way they would have used that for a power plant, for peaceful usage. The nuclear agency also gave a report, and that was surprising because they are usually on the side of Iran, that, well, even they cannot hide what Iran is doing. This was a serious situation. And fortunately, in this time of history, there was a person, there was Israel, there was America that was decided to save the world, literally. So, nice shot, President Trump. You hit the jackpot and really helped the world. I mean, I wasn't sure what to think. I wasn't sure that Trump will actually do it. I thought he's just scaring Iran. But he actually did it. Wow, amazing.
My favorite part.
Anyway, I believe there's going to be some difficult moments ahead of Israel because Iran will try to show some kind of strength, show that they are in control, of course they are not. So please pray for Israel. Please pray for the Middle East. Please pray for Iran so that the regime would be change so that people would be freed from this evil power government that is strangling Iran for many years now.
Yeah,
Thank you for your
that's that one. Thoughts, reactions, questions to America's involvement in this? How do you feel about us jumping in there?
Stepped up.
About time we stepped up. Yeah. Well, we come back to the Genesis 12 promise of God, to Abraham, those that bless you will be blessed, those that curse you will be cursed. And so we'll close with this last one. This was just posted on Monday. We'll close with
I
this.
love Top Gun. It's a great movie. But you thought things like that are only possible in Hollywood? Well, think again, because Hollywood became real. Today, we're going to talk about a joint Israeli and the United States military masterpiece against Iran. We're going to talk why this was almost impossible to execute, how complex this operation actually was, what weapons did the United States use to achieve its goals, what happened before this operation, what was the main target of the strike, what evidence can we see of the destruction? We're going to also talk about the recent information that this attack was in fact a failure. We will highlight Israel's assessment of the goals. And finally, we're going to talk about what the Bible says. Does it say anything about the confrontation between Israel and Iran?
Eating too much salt causes hypertension, right? Nope.
Don't you hate
Not
that?
too much bacon and red meat. Nope. It's actually.
But before we will do that, please remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit that bell button. This is very simple, but it helps me greatly to reach more people. With that out of the way, let's begin. So to understand actually what happened, we need to go back to October 2024 when Israel launched the Operation Days of Repentance. And before this operation, Iran had a pretty good defense. They had their radars, long-range rockets, anti-air systems, of course the Russian S-300, missiles, and other stuff. So they were feeling pretty confident. And of course, they had a decent, although old, fleet of planes, including the Tomcat F-14s and the Phantom IIs. Those, of course, are really old US planes, but still the best that Iran had. In the first stage of the operation, Israel eliminated radars in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and of course, Iran. And the key idea here was to make Iran blind so that they don't know what's coming for them. In that operation in October, Israel also targeted a lot of missiles that Iran had, including the highly advanced S-300. How advanced exactly? Well, not advanced enough to stop the highly modified Israeli F-35s. Anyway, this operation was highly successful and it opened an opportunity for Israel to strike this summer. In other words, without the strikes in October, the strikes in June could not have happened. And then came June 13, Operation Rising Lion.
Israel's military launched a barrage of strikes on Iran overnight.
Israel and Iran attacking each other this Friday night.
In an unprecedented series of attacks, Israel targeted Iran's nuclear facilities and killed several top military commanders.
Israel's war with Iran has entered a new and audacious phase, one scripted in the shadows by Mossad and unleashed in the skies by the Israeli Air Force.
In just 12 days, Israel achieved more than was expected of it. By the end of the war, after those 12 days, Israel was controlling most of the skies in Iran. And although Israel was highly successful decimating Iran's nuclear facilities, scientists, and leadership, there still was a major obstacle. For Israel to claim full victory, an Iranian fortress had to be destroyed. The name of this fortress is, of course, Fordo. And even with Israel's brilliant planning and technology, this was something even they could not touch. Hidden deep within a mountain, Iran was developing a nuclear program for years. And on June 12th, a day before Israel attacked Iran, a critical report came that Iran is now at a 60% uranium enrichment. And Israel knew that the most advanced gains in uranium enrichment are happening in Fordo, deep under a big mountain. So the clock started ticking, and Israel and the world had just a little bit of time before Iran develops a nuclear weapon. And although the United States have developed a special kind of a bomb, a massive bomb, a penetrator of mountains, but even the United States weren't sure that this weapon will be effective against such a giant bunker. This was the strongest weapon, but the question was, will it work? And the challenge wasn't only about the power of the bomb, but also about precision. You see, not one of those bombs had to be dropped on the mountain, but a series of bombs, and they had to fall one after another in the same spot. An impossible mission, but the only nation that could pull it off was the United States. And on 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, June 21st, President Trump gave an order for the secret mission to begin. From this military base in the state of Missouri, a squadron of 12 B-2 bombers left for one of the most ambitious missions in the history of the world. And the approximate distance that the planes flew, well, this is also impressive. 7,000 miles or over 11,000 kilometers. Of course, they were refueled on their way. Nobody knew about the planes leaving the base in Missouri, but the United States announced that a squadron of planes is going west to confuse the enemy. And once the B-2 stealth bombers arrived to the Middle East, they had to be escorted by United States jet fighter planes that were already in the region on the air carriers that arrived earlier. This includes the F-18 Super Hornets and, of course, the F-35s, the fifth generation planes. And of course, the United States wanted to be extra careful with those B-2 Stealth Spirit bombers because one of them cost over $2 billion. Additionally, you have the cost of the bombs themselves, which is over $3 million. 12 of them were dropped. But the biggest problem and nightmare of the United States would be if one of those bombers would be actually shot down, because that means transfer of technology first to Iran, then to Russia, and then to China. So the United States couldn't lose even one. The bombs themselves had to be dropped from a very high altitude. And that's because the bombs themselves don't have engines. They guide themselves using mechanical parts at the rear of the bomb. And yet they are very, very precise, using a GPS system that allows them to reach the target that is located miles away from the launched bomb. And because of this extreme precision, those bombs could land one after another in the same exact spot, causing bigger and bigger holes. Eventually, as was planned, to reach the center.
That's not cool.
It's the quickest way to clear out stuck poop.
the number one food for this nuclear.
So you never know what ads you're gonna
And
get.
remember, the facility at Ferdo was specifically designed to be protected from the biggest bunker buster bombs. That's why you not only needed one of those bombs to fall exactly where you wanted, but 2, 3 bombs falling exactly where they needed. That was the only way to destroy this evil project. A huge, huge challenge, stretching the human capabilities in military planning. At the same time as the B-2 stealth bombers were hitting their targets at Ferdo, another layer of complexity was happening. The 2 aircraft carrier strike groups were in the Middle East, and from the submarines of all things, the United States launched many cruise missiles, Tomahawk cruise missiles, that went to strike the other bases in Iran. The second base that was hit in Iran was a military base and a nuclear site in Isfahan. Here, the Tomahawk missiles finished off what Israel already started when it launched the Rising Lion operation. And because the Tomahawk missiles are also very precise cruise missiles, they caused significant damage to this nuclear facility. And the third target that was hit by the United States was the Natanz nuclear site. And as with Isfahan, this is again the United States finishing off what Israel already started. The Russian and Iranian defense systems were no match for those cruise missiles and the bombs that the United States dropped this base. Now, let's look at some real photos before and after to assess the damage. So here you can see Fordo, and on the right, you see a picture showing you 3 holes. Those holes were made by the bombs. And because you don't see a lot of damage on the outside, this is a clear indication that a lot of damage happened inside. And that's the whole idea of those weapons, that they do not explode on the outside, they explode inside once they penetrate an object, a mountain, a bunker. So the photos you saw indicate to me that the attack was successful, but we're going to return to that, so stay tuned. Before I continue, I want to say that most of the animations you saw today in this video, I made myself. It took me hours to create those animations. I do not use AI, I create them myself. That means a lot of work. But I hope you enjoy it, and because of this, they can be very custom. They can be very adequate, talking about what happened in Iran. And I want to take a moment to thank everybody who's supporting my channel. You guys are the best. Thanks to you, I can do what I do, and I really enjoy it. Don't take it wrong. It takes me a lot of hours, but I'm having a lot of fun. Having said that, if any one of you newcomers just saw for the first time my video, please consider supporting the channel. This is a great way to support me, a person, a real person, not AI, that is creating custom videos on YouTube. If you would like to do that, I will appreciate it a lot. And the best way to do it is through Patreon and PayPal. Links to those sites you will find in the description of this video. With that out of the way, let's continue. So here's another real satellite image showing you before and after. On your left, you have before, and on your right, you have after. This is Isfahan. And here, in contrast to Ferdo, we can see a lot of distraction because the distraction was done on the outside. It was done to the structures on the surface. And here are more satellite images showing you this time the third nuclear site, the Natanz nuclear facility. And Natanz combines the previous two nuclear sites because it was both targeted by bunker busters, but also the Tomahawk missiles and planes by Israel before. So you have a combination of the damage. Okay, so as promised, let's talk a little bit now about the sensational news that came out right after the United States hit Iran. So some of the news agencies, and you can see here BBC, but also CNN and others, started to spread the information that in fact this attack wasn't as successful and the US strike is gonna set back Iran just a few months. And in fact, the facilities weren't totally destroyed. Now it seems that the narrative again has flipped because there are now reports saying that the CIA is actually saying that this strike was very successful. It did tremendous damage to Iran, and the US senators have also been briefed on the success of this mission. And of course, Trump wasn't happy about this whole news coming out, undermining Trump's decision and also his administration. So there was a lot of going back and forward, and I'm guessing there's still going to be a lot of that. But there is something very interesting what Trump said. Listen carefully.
They did a report. I could have Pete talk to it because his department did the report. They really don't know. I think Israel's going to be telling us very soon because Bibi is going to have people involved in that whole situation. We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration. When you
Okay, let me get this straight. So the United States are counting on Israel to tell them how successful this attack was. That means that Israel still has its agents inside Iran. Wow. The most advanced military in the world are still counting on this small nation, on Israel, to give them precise information how devastating the strike was. I mean, you can say, yeah, Israel is in the Middle East, they have a closer cultural connection, but still, this is pretty huge. And of course, right now, there is a little bit of doubt, you know. You can't be 100% sure that this attack was 100% success. But we should also listen to what Iran is saying itself.
This is the morning gut reset recipe that took me from 198 to 147 in just weeks.
And Iran's foreign minister, Mr. Abbas, is saying himself, yeah, it was a big hit, and it did send us back a lot. And you know, you could say that Iran is bluffing right now to avoid further attacks. But if you know the culture, if you know the pride of the Iranian people, well, they would never say that they were hurt. And the other factor that needs to be added to this is that Israel itself is claiming great victory and saying that all the objectives of the Operation Rising Lion have been achieved. So it seems that Israel is happy with the results, and they are quite impressive. Nuclear scientists eliminated, missile systems destroyed, nuclear facilities decimated, and most importantly, little casualties. I mean, Israel even destroyed the ancient planes that Iran had. I mean, it is a little bit sad. They should be in a museum, you know, that's where they should be. Okay, but there is one element which is very worrying in this operation, and that is what happened before the United States struck Iran. You see, the day before the US struck Iran, there was a lot of activity. Satellite images show trucks going out and in to Fordo, meaning that something was transported. Now, they were probably not able to transport the facilities. They were deep inside the ground and they're pretty big. What they could transport is uranium, enriched uranium. But the problem for them is that you can't do much with that if you don't have the equipment, which was probably destroyed. Now, what I have promised is that I will also relate the events that happened in Iran, in Israel, to the Bible. And of course, I will do it, but not in this video. And the reason is because this video already took too long for me to create, really 18 minutes, 19 minutes, but it's hours of work. And I need to leave tomorrow, so I can't finish it up. And I want to do a good job about this topic. So I want you to be patient, and we're gonna come back to this. So for today, this is all I got for you. Just one more thing, if you want.
Okay, so that is that on America and Israel. Reactions, what do you think? Glad we did it? We're not sure, or one potential danger coming out of this is with power in Iran's leadership weakened, evil loves a vacuum. That might create an opportunity for Al-Qaeda to spread further from Afghanistan into Iran and, you know, make its way straight across over towards through Iraq to Israel as well. So just something to be mindful of there. But whether we're talking about Iran, whether we're talking about Taliban, Al-Qaeda, all these things, it's again, as I started at the beginning with Revelation 12, the spiritual warfare. Keep in mind, these folks aren't just aiming at Israel, they have us in their sights as well. Not only as supporters of Israel, but just because we are generally as a nation, Judeo-Christian promoters of the one true God, contrary to their ultimate God, who is really Satan, their power behind them. So I'll close with this. I'll just read real quick out of Revelation 17. Verse 14 says, "These will wage war against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are the called and chosen and faithful." And he said to me, "The waters which you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. The 10 horns which you saw, the beasts, these will hate the prostitute, make her desolate, naked, eat her flesh, burn her with fire." And now verse 17. "For God has put it in their hearts to execute his purpose by having a common purpose and by giving their kingdom to the beast until the words of God will be fulfilled." So while they are doing their things and even combining forces on some things, they're really falling right into God's plan. In fact, he's kind of leading them into this so that all will come to a head and Christ will take care of business and will usher in the millennium that we were all looking forward to. So any last thoughts on that before we close it up for the night? So that's the last that he had from Monday, 2 days ago. And barring anything else, we'll be back in Revelation chapter 9, heading into chapter 10 on next Wednesday. So does this kind of help piece together what's been happening in Bible Connections as it's going on? Yes, no, maybe so?
Yes, yeah.
All right. We'll go ahead and close it up for now. Let's get ready to stand and meet in the center, close out in our season of prayer.